The Witch Trials, where mass hysteria meets murder. Between 1400 and 1775, approximately 100,000 people were prosecuted for witchcraft across Europe and British America. However, it's important to understand that ideas around evil forms of witchcraft in this period are creations of superstition and paranoia. It's likely people practiced a little folk magic as it was integrated into everyday life, but not the darker magic that they were accused of. So why did the British witch hunts happen? Contemporary belief often portrays the witch hunts as an attack targeting women. However, the truth behind this narrative is more complex and differs based on different locations where the hunts take place. Consistently, the witch hunts create scapegoats in society, aligned to social hierarchy and local folklore. In the 1500s and 1600s, British society was built on a foundation of institutionalised misogyny, where women were legally, intellectually and spiritually classed as the weaker sex. In a society ruled by religion, women were blamed for the fall of man. Because Eve tempted Adam, women were viewed as inherently untrustworthy. Under a legal doctrine called coverture, a woman had no independent legal identity. She was covered by her husband. This made unmarried and widowed women more vulnerable, although married women and men were accused and prosecuted for witchcraft too. So yes, misogyny was a big contributor, but today I'm going to be diving into the wider events that bore the fundamental ideas behind the British witch hunts, rather than focus on why specifically women were targeted. Before the 15th century, witchcraft was mostly used to describe sorcery, a practice likely as old as humanity itself. Magic rites were performed in Mesopotamia, Egypt, India, and in fact every ancient civilization. In around the 10th century BCE, Persia introduced a Zoroastrian sect of priests skilled in the magical arts. The Greeks and Romans believed the art of magic originated with these priests, and referred to them as the Magi, and so magic and religion entwined. Witch trials did exist in the ancient world, although they focused more on poisoning and political threats. Magic was a power that could be used to cause harm, but it was not yet associated with the devil. Despite popular belief, the birth of Christianity actually brought a temporary halt to witch hunting in Europe. For a long time, the Christian churches did not prosecute witchcraft, and folk magic existed alongside religion. In fact, it isn't until 1,000 years later that the European witch hunts begin. In 785, the Germanic Council of Paderborn outlawed the belief in witches, and the Holy Roman Emperor Charlemagne later confirmed this law. Witchcraft was seen as heresy. Between 1000 and 1300 AD, there are only 20 recorded witch trials in the entire of Europe. In the 12th and 13th century, the Church argued that because God was all-powerful, the devil could not change physical reality, so he wasn't seen as a significant threat. By the Middle Ages, we begin to see a few witchcraft accusations, although more so used conveniently for financial and political gain, such as the case of Queen Joan. In 1402, Joan of Navarre became Queen of England, with an unusually high dowry of 10,000 marks. Following King Henry IV's death, her stepson King Henry V accused her of witchcraft and her fortune was conveniently confiscated. She was imprisoned for nearly 3 years, until July 1422, just weeks before King Henry's death. He ordered her release and a full restoration of her dower, confirming this was financially motivated. Another accusation fell to another Joan. Joan of Arc was a French peasant girl, who, claiming divine guidance from saints, led the French army to victory against the English. This led to a theological problem. If God was guiding her against the English, then God must be against England. To solve this, after her capture in 1430, the English-aligned court handed her over 70 charges, including heresy and witchcraft, and she was burned at the stake in 1431. The shift to witch hunts as we recognise them today started with so-called Satanic Witchcraft. In the modern world, there are practitioners who identify as satanic witches. However, in the 15th century, this idea actually stemmed from religious writers. From 1300, the European climate had deteriorated dramatically, bringing with it harsher weather and increasingly failing crops, eventually leading to famine. This continued for around 200 years. In 1346, the bubonic plague had reappeared for the first time in 7 centuries. By the early 1300s, the Crusades had been defeated. Between the end of the Crusades and the fall of Constantinople, the Christian world was shrinking. In a world where God is as certain as science is to us today, it's easy to see why people would have believed they were being tested or punished. Around this time, a new belief was rising in Western and Central Europe. the devil was increasingly considered a potent entity, allowed by God to test human faith by providing demonic energy to those willing to commit evil acts. In the 1430s, a small group of writers from Central Europe began to describe covens of witches who worshipped demons, had orgies, ate babies, and performed other abominable acts. It's unknown if these authors knew each other, but they all described groups of witches supposedly active around the Western Alps. In 1441, Duchess Eleanor Cobham, the wife of the Duke of Gloucester, who was next in line for the throne, hired the Witch of Eye, a cunning woman named Marjorie Germain, to predict the king's death and ensure her husband would become the next king. Marjorie created a wax effigy of the king to melt. The plot was discovered, and in October 1441, Marjorie was burned at the stake. From this point on, witchcraft continued to be seen as a growing threat. In 1484, Pope Innocent VIII was one of the most influential people in Europe, so when he declared that witchcraft was real and those who practiced it could do real harm, people listened. The Pope gave powers to local priests and investigators to seek out and prosecute witches wherever they were found. 3 years later, a priest named Henrik Kramer released the Malleus Maleficarum, the guide to hunting witches. Whereas in continental Europe, witchcraft was associated with the Satanic Pact, the belief that the witch had to make a pact with the devil. In Britain, while the devil was mentioned, witchcraft accusations focused more on Maleficarum, harmful magic, and the familiar, animal spirits. During the Protestant Revolution, there was a surge of emphasis from Protestant and Catholic leaders on stamping out perceived harmful influence. Around the same time, we see a rise in literacy and increased availability of written documents through the invention of the printing press and the first English translation of the Bible. The Hebrew phrase Mukashefa has historically been translated as condemning sorcerers. In the 1530 Tyndale Bible, we first see the popularised quote, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live." However, there is debate about whether Mukashefa ever meant witch at all, and some argue that the translation really should be poisoner. Either way, if crops failed without clear reason, cattle died suddenly, or someone fell ill, witchcraft had become the unseen dark power that could be blamed. This fear built its way into monarchal power. If a magician could predict or cause a monarch's death, they were a direct threat. It is in this intensifying climate that King James I grows up. Initially King of Scotland, he was set to marry Anne of Denmark. In 1590, the fleet carrying his bride-to-be had to turn back due to stormy weather. James then set out to collect her, and on their return voyage hit another storm. In Copenhagen, 1590, a woman named Anne Colding had been arrested under suspicion of witchcraft. Under torture, she claimed that her and a group of women sent demons to try and stop Princess Anne from travelling to Scotland. Anne Colding was executed along with 12 other women. Upon returning to Scotland, King James began further interrogations. An accused woman, Agnes Sampson, is said to have repeated the exact words James and Anne exchanged on their first night in Oslo, and apparently this convinced James witches must be real. This led to the North Berwick witch trials, where suspects, under torture, claimed to have used witchcraft to attack the king's ship. Following these events, King James became heavily involved in hunting witches, and in 1597 he released Demonology, an attempt to validate the witch trials, defend royal authority, and counter occult skeptics. However, his belief in witchcraft wasn't his only motivator. James used witchcraft as a political tool. The trials asserted authority over the Scottish churches, power he hadn't previously had. By 1603, James was also the King of England. Having successfully consolidated his power, he no longer needed the trials to maintain authority. Scotland followed inquisitorial law, where torture was legal with a warrant and witchcraft considered an exceptional crime, making it easier to execute. This is why Scotland's execution rate was 5 times higher than England's. English courts followed common law, where torture was illegal and judges required stricter proof of harm. After 1605, James became more preoccupied with Catholic conspiracies, such as the Gunpowder Plot, than with witches. This doesn't mean that society reflected this change. In fact, the famed Pendle witch trials take place in 1612. A key turning point for James happened in 1616, when a young boy in Leicester claimed he was bewitched and the case went to trial. As a result, 9 women were hanged. The following month, James visited the boy himself and discovered that he was lying. This led to the courts being heavily reviewed and sent a message to other judges reviewing potential witchcraft cases. Regardless, witchcraft continued to be a core belief in society and was shunned by various religious groups. In fact, the witch hunts were only just heating up. In part 2, we'll follow Matthew Hopkins, the witch finder responsible for killing more so-called witches in his murderous sweep than England had collectively in the previous 160 years. Worshipped demons, had orgies, ate babies, performed other abominable acts.